Actually targeting somewhere around 1,000 registrations.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'll join that as well, especially on
Okay,
the last
great.
part because I'm like, pretty much interested in the VAS services and like
Okay,
that's got
great.
to deal with. Like, I'll
Yeah,
join for that as
yeah,
well.
yeah. That's good. That's good. And so, I mean, the session today is supposed to start like it's already 4 o'clock. So should we start or?
It's 4 o'clock. We have attendees logging in. We'll start
Okay.
in about 2 or 3 minutes more. But
Okay.
the session is live now, and attendees can see us. Attendees can listen to our conversations.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is like behind the curtain kind of stuff. Guys, whoever has joined, they're increasing. The number of participants are increasing. Whoever joined, this is behind the scene talks. We'll start a session in about 2 or 3 minutes once we have the house full. So meanwhile, for attendees who have already joined in, what I want to understand from you, what are your expectations from this session? So we have a lot of fabulous people in this panel, not me, I'm talking about others. What do you want to learn from them? So you want to be spending an hour and a half here, and what expectation do you have from the fabulous panel we have? So you can just put on the chat, and we will note it down, and we'll ask your questions to the attendees one by one. You can just maybe keep putting your questions, your thoughts, what you want to learn on the chat window, and we will take care of those questions. All right. Okay. I think we can start. I got an instruction from my colleague that we must start now. So let's start. Thank you so much, KD. Thank you, and thank you everyone on the panel, Anand, Jitendra, Trisha, and Rachana. Thank you very much for coming over and taking this time out. You guys are fabulous, and I'm so excited to be here. I just can't see us over delivering. We want to over deliver right now because people have come and with a lot of expectation, and we must give them something that they can take back home and use it, like an action point, like a kit, like a toolkit, which they can go back home and use, and not just let's not this be a webinar where people are just listening to us and going back home without any toolkit, without any ammunitions, without any action points. So I want to start perhaps asking small question. And I can ask this question to perhaps let's start the ladies. We can start Trisha first. Trisha, how were the last 4 months for you? How were the last 4 months for you?
Honestly, so hi, I just thought I'd introduce myself. My name is Trisha and I'm the CEO at Dr. Vedas. We are into the space of Ayurveda and our business is 90% online. I think giving that summary will actually help you understand my last 4 months. So I think the last 4 months, I don't think I've worked as hard as I have in the last 4 months. Given the fact that we are essential services, we could actually start early on in April itself, right? So there were 4 or 5 of us who were coming every day to office, packing goods, dealing with returns, dealing with couriers coming, dealing with goods coming from the factory, trying to make new processes, new systems in place. Honestly, the last 4 months, no one's going to say has been easy. They have been difficult, but I think it's also given us all a huge opportunity to step back and actually relook at everything in our business, right? It gave us time to improve our UI UX of the web of our website. How do we improve our customer experience? How do we launch loyalty programs? We launched 7 new products in lockdown, right? So it made us go above and beyond. Like everything was shut, but we didn't take no for an answer, right? As a company, we've never had a work from home policy, but overnight we had to adapt to that, and we've done it. There was being part of a startup, you always have about 100 projects that you want to work on. So I think this lockdown actually gave us time that, okay, let's start and work on this. It's been difficult, it's been exhausting, but it's been totally worth it. I think we just have to look for the best, when we have some situations. I think we're one of the lucky few who've actually been able to grow during this phase of COVID as well, given that Ayurveda was a category that people started looking into. Now, I'm quite sad that that's how Ayurveda has come on the map, but hey, I'm happy that people are now coming to Ayurveda in the beginning rather than at the end. So yeah, I mean, those have been my 4 months. I haven't taken a day off for the last 4 months, be it a Saturday, be it a Sunday. But I love what I do, so I'm not complaining.
Wonderful, wonderful, Trisha. Thank you so much. So, guys, I think it's time for a question here. Before, so Katie, can you please launch the poll, the first poll, and you can also allow the panelists to answer the question. Yes. So the first question is: has your business grown in the last 4 months? The answer can be yes or no. Rachana and the likes of Rachana, you can answer for your clients. On behalf of your clients, what have you been observing for your clients? Has your, or like maybe some of the clients have seen a growth, some of the clients have seen a downfall, and majority of clients, if majority of clients have seen a downfall, you can say no. If majority of clients have seen a uptrend, you can say yes.
Sure.
So Katie, can you please publish the poll results for everybody's benefit? Wow, half. So half of the businesses have grown and half have fallen down. Interesting. I didn't expect that. I was expecting perhaps 25% people or 20% people will say that the business has gone up, and remaining will say otherwise. So, and Trisha is definitely one of them. That business has grown in the last 4 months. Thank you so much, Trisha. Rachana, I would like to come to you now. If you can tell me something interesting, the most interesting things, like 1 or 2 most interesting things that happened with you or your customers in the last 4 months.
Sure. So just like Trisha, I'd first like to introduce myself, and so that I can set the context. I represent Vinculum, which is a SaaS company, a retail SaaS organization. We provide the complete backend for brands, retailers, and sellers who are essentially looking at selling across different channels. There was a time when we would just either go and shop in the store, or we would go, and in the past 10 years, there's been an e-commerce boom as well. So there would be sellers and brands who would be essentially selling through their, web.coms or through marketplaces, etc. But the trend now is that you essentially, as a brand or a retailer, have to be where your customer is, which is where you do not necessarily have to be you cannot necessarily have a uni-channel approach, and you will be selling across different channels. So what Vinculum does is, no matter what channels that you sell from, and likewise, no matter what channels that you fulfill from. So for example, I sell from a web store, I sell from a marketplace, I sell from a franchise outlet, or through a brand distributor. And likewise, I fulfill from a marketplace fulfillment part setup, or through my own warehouse, or through a store. We provide the complete backend to give you a single view of inventory and to manage your data so that it's completely consistent across channels, and fulfill it in a manner that you are able to reach your customers faster and able to reach them more efficiently. Now, in this lockdown, coming to the specific question, in this lockdown, what has come out is extremely interesting. And I don't know whether I can turn around and say, give a very definitive answer saying that, oh, the business has grown, or the business, I wish we were something like an Ayurveda where we could turn around and say, oh, the business has grown or the business has come down. For our customers, it's been a mixed bag, because we have different kinds of categories who are essentially our customers. They could be home improvement categories, they could be health and beauty, they could be fashion and lifestyle, there could be medicines and pharma. So each one of them have seen their own curve. And initially, obviously, I think the day the lockdown was announced, obviously everything went into a standstill mode almost, because people just didn't know what to do. And in fact, there was so much of uncertainty that one was not even able to understand how is it going to shape up. The most critical aspect of this whole thing was consumer behavior was the most uncertain part of it, because even the consumers did not know how to go about. Can they go to the mall? Will this lockdown be for an extended period? Will it be for 3 weeks, or will it get extended? So there were a whole lot of things which were happening in a consumer's mind, which was reflecting in the data of purchase. and which is where some categories, while they showed a flat growth, there's some categories which definitely went down. In terms of discretionary spends, obviously, people were only buying essential goods for a very, very long time. So lifestyle would take a hit. So it's been a mixed bag for Vinculum, and that's how we've seen the data trending. Having said that, the day the unlock one happened, we started seeing a steady growth. And then, of course, it became, over a period of time, we are almost reaching a situation where we're monitoring data, and we are reaching a situation where, especially for some categories, we are almost at pre-COVID levels. Okay. Wow. Some categories will take a certain bit of time to come out. And I guess that's expected. But in terms of what's interesting that's happened is clearly three things that have emerged significantly for us. The first is there is a sudden surge of all sellers, brands, and retailers who are turning around and saying, hey, I need to have an online presence. So that's like almost like a given, right? Because you essentially need to be where the customers are. And given that everyone's inside their homes, you need to be available at the click of a button. And when I say online, what happens is even brands, even FMCG brands, which have always used for almost like decades, they've used a very, very conventional method of distribution through distributors, have suddenly felt the need of being able to go and sell at doorstep of the customers. So it's become completely D2C. And that's been a very, very interesting trend for us. So like Trisha talked about, launching several brands, one of the things that we figured out, and it was almost like an overnight spin for us, was the ability to enable FMCGs to go D2C and deliver it at the customer's doorstep contactless through a hyperlocal delivery model. And that is where our complete stack came to a rescue, and we were able to just join the dots, and through our ecosystem partners and through our product stack, we were able to join the dots. That's the second piece. The third piece that came up is because of the fact that lockdowns happen in many categories, especially for fashion, we would realize that in terms of fashion, what happened was people were not buying trendy wear, etc., etc. No one was stepping out. So what do you do with all the stock that's lying in the warehouses? Or what do you do with the yarns and yarns of fabric that's lying in the warehouses? So obviously, people overnight changed their model. They went into making masks, and they went into making PPE equipments, etc., etc. So and the moment that happened, then they started looking at new avenues to sell, and not just the traditional models that they were deploying. So when you're looking at new avenues, and we're looking at going back to the blueprint and looking at your business model, you started looking at what are the other ways in which I can actually generate revenue. And cross-border emerged as a very, very interesting byproduct of that. At Vinculum, we have actually been pioneering the whole cross-border story for the past couple of years. But the surge that we have seen in the past 4 months is actually something which gives us the confidence that we are in the right direction. And we are now enabling different models for cross-border, and not just a traditional dropship model, but different models of cross-border. And that's something that I spoke about, when I joined the thing also, where, we realized brands are looking for help as to how they need to go about doing cross-border solutions. And we are enabling that entire process of taking them cross-border. So these are some of the three things which have been extremely, extremely interesting, especially for us.
Wonderful, 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 Rachna. Thank you so much for the insight. Jitendra, I mean jewelry. So you sell jewelry line. So are people still buying jewelry in the times of uncertainties? What's your take of the last 4 months?
Honestly, not only the people are buying jewelry, they are also monetizing their jewelry in this country. So almost, I was speaking to one of the bank, and they said that on June month, in just 1 month, they have given more than 600 crore worth of gold loan, just for the gold loan in just 1 month. I'm talking about just one bank, and we have so many private players, NBFC and many nationalized banks who have the gold loan. So not only the people are coming to buy jewelry, and even the gold prices have gone up. So whenever the economic crisis comes globally, always gold prices start going up, because everybody, people think it's a safe haven, kind of thing. So gold price, despite the gold prices has gone up, but India still has seen a very, very positive Akshaya Tritiya sales. Perhaps people bought more gold than they were actually buying any other time. Another thing is when we all are sitting at home and we are not spending too much money on the experiences where we used to spend, people are having, I think, people are having a lot more savings than they've had earlier. Despite there could have been salary cut downs and everything, but our expenditures have also gone up, so people are saving a lot. Another thing is that saving, when it is not going into the experience center, the best place comes into the gold, assets, because real estate is not different kind of thing, and gold prices has been started going up. So a lot of investment is coming into the gold side, and not only for the consumers, even I believe many governments of the world could have been buying a gold at this point of time. To safeguard against their economy, against the fluctuations of the currencies and the GDP, etc. So we have seen a lot of growth. I think May and June we have received many orders which are still being delivered. What we are facing challenges is the order comes in, and after the order comes in, it is supposed to do picked up from the jeweler, and when the order comes, we come to the next day, it is announced that this area is into the containment zone now for next 2 weeks.
So you are saying orders are coming in, but delivery is an issue.
Delivery. So logistics is, and especially, and the many of the times we saw, orders was picked up from the jeweler, but the customer who has ordered, his area has gone into the containment zone.
So he's not coming to pick up.
So that pieces of gold are actually lying at the courier hub, basically. Though it is import, so there is nothing to be panic about. But at least these kind of challenges we are facing since last 3 months. And but the positive thing happened about this industry in the jewelry. Government of data says there are 3 lakh registered jewelers, and they were all are offline. Like players like Tanishq, Malabar Gold, Joy Lucas, kind of big retail chains of jewelry. All national retail chains and regional retail chains putting together hold only 15% market share. 85% market share in jewelry is still with the mom and pop stores, or we can say the family jewelers, which are very fragmented and very, very unorganized. E-jewelry is playing a very important role in that area. So those jewelers who were not willing to come online and they were not understanding the power of online, they have started contacting to e-jewelry, just guide us how we can create our online presence and we can associate with you. So a lot of pull factor has come from the supply side for us. So a lot of growth has happened towards the jeweler side, and we have worked on many technologies which can digitize in this jewelry industry. If you see in last 1 decade, many industries have been digitized, but somehow jewelry has been left behind. And I think it is left behind because digitization in jewelry में सबसे बड़ा problem digitization itself था.
Right.
Digitization of photography of the jewelry and goes to the live, it was a very, very time consuming, lot of efforts required, lot of photography is still required, because this requires a very precision kind of photography. And we have developed an IT solution where the people can photo shoot their product free of cost. They don't need, with zero editing, and they photo shoot in 10 minutes, it can go live on the website, which used to take 30 days. From moving from 30 days to 10 days, we were able to achieve in this lockdown period.
Wow.
So we invested our more time towards the IT, we invested more time towards the jeweler acquisition. And consumers are, even the consumer who are not buying, they are spending a lot of time on jewelry on our website. And their average time on website has been almost double in these 3 months.
Wow. So a lot of people who perhaps are not able to go to shops, they're doing window shopping on a website, they're spending and relishing the jewelry on a website.
Yes.
Interesting. That's very nice. That's a good perspective. The Shopify man, Anant. So I mean, you guys are ruling India, right? Suddenly India has become your focus as well. You are like going all out, talking to everybody. What's your story? How was the last 4 months for you?
4 months, as Rachna rightly said, uncertain is the right word. So like starting out with uncertainty as soon as the lockdown came into picture, nobody knew, right? Nobody knew what's going to happen. And it was very difficult for us to advise our merchants what exactly to do as well. And what we try to do is try to empathize with the merchants. That's the best that we could do, and try to empathize, get feedback, and see what is the right solution for every single merchant. And it was one of the most difficult things to do because you cannot offer any other support at that point of time. This is the first 2 weeks of lockdown that I'm talking about. Post which, what we try to do is try to support merchants in like small aspects of what they can probably do. One of the biggest things that we got to know from merchants would be cash flows become a real challenge, right? So because there is no sale that's coming in, managing cash flows is going to be a real pain. So what we try to do is, so Shopify has a different plans to cater to merchants. What we tried initially, this is the first thing that we did, make, let's say, gift cards free on all of these plans. It might be a very simple or a small thing to do, but it did provide good value for our merchants. So this, like these big brands which are selling direct to consumers, they started selling these gift cards to at least manage a little bit of their cash flow. But that was just a small thing that we started off doing. And then we started experimenting with, let's say, other small things where, let's say, all of these merchants put in money. One big thing was they do a lot of marketing, and how to transition this marketing before and after COVID. So pre-COVID, it was like a different sort of marketing, the tone, what the customers were looking at, all of that was different. Post-COVID, it changed, or right when lockdown started, it changed. And one of the big things that we tried to do at that point of time is launch Shopify email for free. So this is just email marketing. That's a tool that is given out to all our customers for free. So we made email marketing free so that our merchants can send out emails, at least keep the marketing right, and try to empathize with their customers and try to do that. And we kind of try to encourage back ordering. For example, all of the big brands that are there, at least to manage cash flows, try to back order. We know for a fact that, okay, it's not going to be like this forever. This is the worst time that's going to be. And like, try to put the messaging out saying the worst is behind us and there are good things, or the future is always bright. These are the small things that we try to do. And during this first month of lockdown, these are the things that we tried. And we did try to support our merchants as much as possible. And after the lockdown was lifted, try to support new entrepreneurs as much as possible. At this point of time, we tried to launch a campaign. There's something called Back to Business campaign. This is where we tied up with a lot of partners in India. So these would be service providers, marketing providers, and all of these partners for Shopify to offer some form of, let's say, discounts or offers where merchants can launch and scale. And at this point of time, Shopify made their launch plan to be free. That's 90-day free trial. So you get 3 months of free trial to set up a store and start experimenting. This was pretty great because, let's say, if you look at the demographic of 1 to 3 months where people are at their homes, existing business trying to fix their business, and new merchants, or let's say new merchants coming in, trying to start a store online, this new offer, or let's say the free plan of Shopify, helped them to start up. So we saw a lot of new merchants coming in, trying to experiment with stuff, trying to put in new ideas and all of that. So like, it's been a bumpy road from the first month to the 4 months, but it was a different journey. And every single point of time, there are new learnings. And even now, if I say like, what is going to happen the next month, it's still uncertain for a lot of us. I think it's the same for all my panelists here as well. And I think they have really good, let's say, ideas or perspectives from a merchant's point of view, where we try to listen and try to help in every stage of it.
Wonderful, wonderful, Anand. Thank you so much for your insights. Katie, if you can launch a poll for, say, the second poll for our panelists and for attendees. Let's see what question comes up. All right. Do you agree that you need to focus on online selling more than ever? And I'm expecting 100% to say yes. Let's see. If you have less than 100%, that means you're failing. That means all of us are failing. 100% is a bare minimum requirement here. Wow. We still have 10% people who believe that we do not need to focus on online selling more than ever. So interesting. I mean, we appreciate and respect that perspective. Guys, all the attendees who have said yes or no, doesn't matter. Put your questions. We are receiving questions in the question Q&A session, and we will be answering. We will be asking these questions to the panelists. Just keep putting your questions. It keeps us motivated. It keeps us excited. We want to over deliver here. Okay, so if you are participating, we would make it interesting for you. We will make it more interesting for you, not interesting. All right. So let's start the next round. We'll start with the data man, Jitendra. Jitendra, what have you done in the last 4 months to optimize? So you said you have invested a lot of time and money in IT, in developing solutions. If you can talk a bit more about how these solutions work, how these IT solutions work, what exactly has been optimized and how? What are these solutions? Have you been developing yourself or have you taken external help? And how do these solutions are helping you optimize your business? What are these solutions?
So as I mentioned, this industry has got one of the biggest problem of the digitization cost. For example, in Amazon or Flipkart or any place, if you sell one iPhone, you need to just need one photograph of iPhone, and you can sell millions of pieces. While jewelry, because they're one size, or one product fits all. Jewelry is a very personalized product. Some jewelry, if Rachna likes, suppose Rachna likes very much, maybe Trisha may not like at all. Because it's a personal taste kind of thing. So in jewelry industry, people have to photo shoot more products to sell one product. And this is, I think, even in many fashion categories, this situation could be happening. So we developed a solution for us, especially for eJewelry jewelers, that they can photo shoot the product just by using an iPhone, which does not require any photography skill. It requires zero editing. So, a white background for the e-commerce site you will get automatically. Directly from iPhone, you can directly upload on eJewelry server. You don't need to even transfer the image to your, computer to edit it. So zero editing, zero photography cost, and does not require much of the photography skills. That has become a game changer. So a couple of the jewelers have already started uploading few products every day, which used to be a problem. They used to do photo shoot, or either we used to help them to do that photo shoot of the product. And when it goes to the live, it used to be after 1 month. Because after photo shoot, there is editing and it depends upon the thing. So this is one of the big things that we brought. Couple of things, small changes we brought, creating a names and description of the product was very challenging. For our SEO team can do, but when we are giving it to the sellers, and we have already have 28,000 products live on the website, and we are looking to reach to 2 million products, creating those names and descriptions becomes very extremely challenging task. So we have already solved that problem. So person does not require to create any names and description. The technology will create it. And we are also this on Monday.
Wonderful. Do you also plan to take up or adopt virtual reality or augmented reality?
So definitely augmented reality is one of the product in our pipeline. So eJewelry is not only is looking to sell only the product as a eJewelry marketplace. We are looking to create a whole ecosystem of the jewelry under one umbrella of eJewelry. So it can be B2B sales, it can be gold loans, it can be selling of your old gold, augmented reality, virtual reality, anything is related to jewelry, even for jewelry cleaning services. You suppose you have bought a 5 lakh rupees necklace, then you are going to buy another necklace, maybe after 1 year. But still within 1 year, you need many of the services to be provided. And then eJewelry becomes your one-stop solution for all for consumer side as well as for the jeweler side. So we are connecting both the worlds, and we are realigning the whole industry with the good ecosystem, with the technology and data. So augmented reality is one of the technology we would be looking to integrate. We have evaluated a couple of the systems already available in our industry. But we believed it has not reached to the level where the customer starts getting too much engaged with this. So whenever we find the right solution, we will integrate. So we are not looking to develop that we should develop our own for augmented reality. I think people have already covered a lot of journey in this technology, and a lot of good solutions have already come in. So it's better that we should tie up with someone and we utilize and give that benefits to our jeweler as well as for the consumers.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jitendra. Rachna, you guys, Vinculum has been helping 600 plus companies in India to sell anywhere faster.
Yes.
You guys are helping.
Our tagline.
Now, how had the top retail? What are the top retail brand trends? I mean, what are the retail brand trends that are emerging in these times? I don't like to use the word COVID or pandemic. In these times, it's perhaps better. It's perhaps more is a euphemism for pandemic. So what are the top retail trends according to you and your customers?
So as I said, we have customers of all types, and I did mention about my core categories. Essentials, no-brainer, turning out to be a big win. And in these times especially, this growth has been phenomenal. I think the biggest retail trend that we have seen in the past few months is the whole story on omni-channel. Okay. And omni-channel is again something which, I remember, a year back we used to, our talking point used to be something like, hey, are you omni-channel ready? Okay. And as we speak today, sitting in mid-July of 2020, we are essentially saying omni-channel is something that you needed yesterday. Okay. And when we talked about omni-channel, we would talk about things, how you integrate online and offline, which was clearly the, most fundamental definition of omni-channel, right? Now, and so, if you are, so when I say integrating, it would be something like, I walk into a store and I don't have a product there, then how is it that I can still, there is something like an endless aisle that I can provide, which will essentially enable a customer to choose a particular product, which is not available physically in the store, but is definitely a part of their catalog and get it delivered to their house. That was an omni-channel experience. Second one would be, I'm sitting at the store, I'm sitting at home, I'm clicking onto I go to the website and I just click onto something that I want. I either get it delivered to my home or I go and pick it up from the store. So it's like click to collect, right? So those were some of the use cases that used to emerge. Thanks to COVID, the use cases on omni-channel are completely changing, and I think one of the best things that's happened, while most people say that, COVID has put spanner into our plans and stuff like that. But I think one of the best things that it has done is that it's actually accelerated the whole technology adoption process for sellers, brands, and retailers. Okay. And if they were looking at plans for, in the next 5 years, they would want to take on something. They have been forced to adopt technology, which, and they have to be agile and forced to adopt technology, which is like here and now. We really need to take on that today. So right from product discovery, right from assistance, in-shop assistance. So now you're not going to the shop. So how can you get assistance remotely? Or it is something about, if I have to go to the shop, obviously I need to bust a queue or I need to go at a certain timing. So how do I time myself at a time where I'm able to maintain social distancing? Most importantly, how can I get into trials? Because trials is something which is, not anybody is going to try to, take on, go into a physical trial room and take on something which perhaps has already been tried by somebody even 24 hours before, right? And you're never sure whether it was tried 24 hours before or whatever. So the entire virtual reality, AI, all that is coming in to be a very, very big mainstay in the whole omni-channel experience. And that's clearly because even loyalty. How do I recognize my customer? How do I ensure that the person gets the loyalty benefit? How do I also do things like fulfillment or digital receipt? As much possible, how can I go contactless? So all these kind of things which are turning out to be top trends that are emerging in the omni-channel experience. You're no longer talking about just curbside pickup or being able to get it delivered at home. There are, AI and virtual reality is going to play a very, very big role. For example, there is this thing which is coming up where, let's take, for want of a better example, let's just take that I decide to go to a toy shop, which has got a chain of toy shops all across the, let's take maybe a Hamleys, right? And you want to go and shop at Hamleys. Now, Hamleys, you sit in your store and you sit on your location and you decide which is the closest Hamleys store that I can go to. And actually through virtual reality, you can actually go and figure out what are the stock options available in your nearest Hamleys store. And you go and pick it up and you decide to put that into your cart and then you get it delivered at home. Now, these are kind of things that we did not think of even 3 months back. And there is technology that's coming in. There are recommendation engines that are coming in. There is personal assistance bots that are coming in, which are essentially helping a customer to get that in-store, experience remotely. And so while I agree to some extent as to when you did that poll, people said not 100% said it's going to be online. My whole thing is that it's going to be a mix. It cannot be just online or it cannot be just offline. It has to be a mix. So the biggest trend that's emerging is clearly omni-channel, and omni-channel also with use cases which we had not imagined 3 months back.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Rachna. Trisha, now Rachna is a big fan and a big advocate of omnichannel. Go omnichannel right now, or yesterday, or day before yesterday should have gone. Why are you so late? So she's basically telling you that you are, I think, focusing mostly on your own web store. And are you omnichannel? I don't think so. Are you selling on multiple marketplaces anywhere else,
Yeah.
or you just focusing on your website? What's your
We do
story?
sell on multiple channels.
Yeah. So how do you counter Rachna?
I don't actually counter her. I completely agree with her,
Okay.
to be honest, right? I even agree with, I didn't expect 100% of the people to say online either. I mean, I think that you need a mix of online and offline. We had Dr. Vaidya's have chosen to build first Dr. Vaidya's, and then, I mean, we sell on Amazon, we sell on Flipkart, 1mg, NetMeds, all the Big Basket, all the platforms, right? And we also do sell offline. Like, I think we did a whole, in the beginning of lockdown, for example, Nature's Basket, who's also part of our group, launched a sanitizer, right? Dr. Vaidya's launched a sanitizer there. Now, that having that physical presence at a store level also helped us, right? It helped us in terms of brand building. It helped us in terms of people being able to smell the product, recognize the product. So I don't disagree with her at all. I think both are very important. It depends again, but everything depends on what size of business you are, what category you are in, where your budgets need to lie. Right now, everyone's budgets are looking to change, right? Everyone is cutting costs where you can. Again, I'll give you small examples. It's great to have e-pharmacies and it's great for us to be able to deliver products, but even though I'm an essential service, there are times where, say, Bhiwandi warehouse is shut down, right? Couriers take much longer versus you going to the physical store and being able to pick it up, right? So I think there are advantages and disadvantages of both, and the mixture of online and offline is the best. So I actually
Wonderful.
completely agree with her on this.
Wonderful. I'm glad. I was not trying to make you fight. Don't worry about it. All right. So, Anant, you guys are catering to the world, right? You have your clients all over the world, and we understand essentials. There are few industries which are booming. Essentials is definitely one, which like pharma and other products. One of ours, so we provide, as you know, we provide analytics services and marketing campaigns and personalization to our clients. We Our clients in the industry of wine per se, we have a couple of clients in the wine industry whose business have grown at least 8 times in 3 months, because people are becoming alcoholics. Okay, I mean, that's good for business for us, but they're not consuming in the restaurants, they're not consuming in the offline, they're just ordering online and consuming at home, perhaps fighting with their spouses. But leaving that part apart, uh, wine business is flourishing, essentials is flourishing. We also figure one of our clients in the US, they sell home decor services, like for example, things that you can use for decorating your house, because people have a lot of time what to do at home, so they will just repair their house, they will get hammers and wooden sheets. In the US, a lot of people do these things themselves. So people who are selling things for repairing your home, for decoration of your home, those businesses are also flourishing. So 3 businesses are definitely flourishing. In your opinion, Anant, what all are the other businesses which are flourishing during these times, apart from these 3?
So you broadly classify 3 categories for me, so that's an easy start. So let me take it from Shopify's perspective. So before this time, like as you said, before this time, I don't want to use COVID again. So before this time, our biggest market or our biggest set of merchants came from fashion. So fashion was our biggest, and I think it occupied, and most of our solutions and everything was primarily under fashion. This was how we started, and I think it just organically grew as a trend. Um, Again, fashion was not just online, right? Fashion was a mix of offline and online. During lockdown, at this point of time, what happened was we saw a trend of everyone adopting to the new world or the new needs. So, be it any single category, they would adopt to their necessary. So, as I said, there is no one single category that would probably, in a overall bunch, like comparing all our merchants, there's going to be booming or there's going to be going down. They're adapting to the whole situation. So one big trend that we saw, all of us, is work from home, right? So that is where you saw home decor going up. That is where you saw a lot of, let's say, tech plus other home accessories going up. Home accessories grew like tremendously big, and we saw a lot of people starting to sell desks. Like there was I would say a lot of merchants who started selling standing desks because these were targeting specifically group of IT people who wanted to sit and work from home. And I think that's going to be the future for a lot of people as well. Home decor is something that grew big. Pharma and let's say fashion as well, even though it did not grow as big as let's say home decor, they started evolving. So if you look at fashion trends, one of our biggest merchants in India, so they normally just sell, let's say, comfortable wear for men. So they transition to creating also desk accessories for people to start working from home. This can be mouse pads, and this can be all of these things, but they maintain their branding or class. So it's like a shift of what is required at this point of time, keeping their branding and keeping what they value. So if you look at a particular category, I don't have a particular category that is booming, but I think there's a scope to, let's say, transition the trend of how the world is moving to and creating products in those lines.
Interesting, interesting. Great. Thank you so much, Anant. Katie, can you launch a poll for our audience and for our panelists? The next question. Okay, so do you know which customers you're about to lose? For example, people who are selling online, do you know which customers you're about to lose? So it's perhaps generally what happens is people are selling online, they have so much traffic coming on the websites, but they do not know which customers will never come back, which are their loyal customers, which customers they have lost, they're not going to come to me ever again. So this question is perhaps for those people who are selling online and they have no idea whether the customer going to come back to you ever again or not. Katie, can you please publish the results? Thank you very much. No, wow, I was expecting that. So this is kind of a marketing gimmick for Inalito. We can tell you which customers you're about to lose, and we can also give you a plan to retain those customers. And we can talk later about it. Thank you so much. Now I wanna jump to some of the questions that are being asked. I'll have to wear my specs for that. That are being asked from us. And okay, first question, Mr. Shashank is asking, and he want to ask it to Trisha. Okay, he chose Trisha. What is the future of e-commerce businesses that plan to sell directly via own website instead of selling at marketplaces? What's their future? What do you think if they're not selling? So he's asking is, what do you think if he's not sell if you're not selling on Amazon and Flipkart, and if you want to choose to sell on your platform, what's your future? If you have made a conscious decision of restricting your sale to your own website, it's a conscious decision being made using by analyzing pros and cons of selling at marketplaces. What do you think is the future for these people?
I don't think it. I'm going to answer the question slightly differently, and I hope I can give you the answer you're looking for. So I think your first question is a lot of why are you selling on your own platform exclusively versus an Amazon and Flipkart, right? So I'll give you Dr. Vaidyas, for example. You have a choice. Do you build on a marketplace or do you build on your own website first, right? Every company will have a budget. Every company will have operational constraints. We chose to actually build on our own website first because we wanted to understand our customer more. I think once you've done that, then building on an Amazon and Snapdeal and Flipkart is easier, but you have to have that risk appetite, you have to have the bandwidth, you have to have the capital to actually do the operations, do the marketing, do the customer service, do the sales, everything on your own website, right? I don't think you should sell only on your own website or third-party players. I look at Amazon, for example, as a marketing channel. I don't think of it as a definitely necessarily just a marketplace. I actually look at it as a marketing channel because a person comes on Amazon with the intent to purchase already. So I may run an ad on Facebook, on TikTok earlier, or Google, or I may run an ad on Amazon. The customers come with the intent to purchase. So I actually look at platforms like Amazon, Flipkart, not only as marketplaces, but also a marketing channel. So a lot of that depends on your bandwidth, your capital, what category are you in also, I feel, what kind of relationship then you can have with your POCs. But if you want to understand your customer the best, personally, I feel I've done that because we've been able to scale on our own website first. There was also a huge advantage we had, right? And a disadvantage at the same time, you can see. again, we were in essential services, so things are slightly different for us from an operational perspective. But Amazon obviously had to, being such a large company, had to put their own protocols, etc., in place. Whereas I did have the luxury of saying, okay, I can start and sell on my own platform. But I also had to have the whole operation nightmare and had to have the bandwidth to do it versus selling on Amazon, where they take the hassle of all of that. So again, I think a lot depends on bandwidth and your team structure and what you can put in place. I would recommend you should do a combination of both and not stick to only one.
Interesting. Very interesting. And taking that question to Rachna, a very interesting perspective that came to me from my partner, Mr. Anand Katakwar, who is the founder and CEO at Analyto. There's a valuation game that we all understand. Okay, now the more people coming on your website, the more valuation that you enjoy. Okay, so a lot of people who are in e-commerce businesses have exit their businesses and now enjoying the perks, the exit perks. Now, Rachna, if you're selling your product, suppose there's a person, the attendee, if you're selling your products, let's say on your own website, and you're also selling on Amazon, you're also selling on Flipkart, you are basically dividing your traffic in 3 different places or 4 different places. Okay. Now, in other words, you are increasing the valuation of Amazon's and Flipkart's, and you're reducing your valuation because you're actually less people coming onto your website. How would you counter the valuation game? How will you counter this question? What would you advise?
I think it's, I would look at it differently, because I would say, I agree to what Trisha said, and I would essentially say that, and this goes completely to the DNA of my product, which is, how can I scale faster? The moment I scale faster and the moment I'm able to show more revenues, automatically my, my valuation goes up, right? And if I am, the biggest benefit of going through your own website is to be able to get the data of people who are visiting, what's their profile, and then you can slice it, dice it, get insights out of it, understand your consumer much better, vis-a-vis going through a marketplace or whatever. But I don't think if you are essentially looking at scaling your business, then once you've got your act together and know what's selling, what essentially is the at what price point you want to sell, what customer you're targeting, and what is the product that you would like to sell. So then there is no reason why you should limit it only to a web store. And given, in fact, the other thing that I want to touch upon here is, today you have tools to measure what product is selling better on what channel. And hence you can actually infuse as much energy and marketing dollars with respect to pushing that kind of a product, say something which is selling much better on, say, on a Facebook, right? Through your Facebook campaigns. Something which is doing much better, but maybe that same product is not doing as well. Something else is doing much better on your web store. So you have far more levers that you can then start juggling around with in order to ensure that you are not only more efficient with different channels, and clearly not one size fits all. A black t-shirt is selling much better on Facebook vis-a-vis on a Google shopping, or vis-a-vis your own website. So you have a chance to interplay those kind of techniques when you're doing that. And so I would approach it like that. I mean, I think it's about, valuation is all about how much you're able to scale your business. So it's not about putting inventory in 3 different places. And even if you have to put inventory in 3 different places, you should be able to fulfill your orders right in time. And that is exactly where Vinculum comes into play, because you get a single view of inventory, and how can you essentially fulfill it through the nearest store, so that you can meet the SLA demands, etc., etc. So it's clearly that as a game. I don't think it's the I would look at a choice of channel basis valuation like that.
Interesting. So we have some more questions from Divanshu. I think your question is about hiring. We'll come to that in a bit. Amazon own website, I think that question is answered. Can we integrate Instagram shop in Shopify? So that's for Anand. So Anand, the question is, can we integrate Instagram shop in Shopify and Facebook shop? Can you suggest someone who can help us? Okay. Can you
So-
integrate Shopify and Facebook in Shopify? This basically.
So we can integrate Instagram Shop and Facebook Shop with Shopify. It's a direct integration. For a
Okay.
Facebook Shop to integrate, we have a direct sales channel which is inbuilt. So just add the sales channel to Shopify, and you can integrate directly with that. For an Instagram Shop, we have third-party applications on the Shopify App Store. So just go to apps.shopify.com, and we have an integration for Instagram as well. And it's most of a DIY process where the system walks you through of how exactly to integrate. And we have a dedicated support for Shopify, and we help with Facebook Shop integrations as well. So you can reach out to support for any of these questions, and go to apps.shopify.com to get the integration done.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know as a matter of fact that Trisha and team do a lot of digital marketing and ad spend. Jitendra, one of the questions that we have here is a very interesting question. Where are the buyers coming from? Whether they're coming from ad search or Google ads or affiliate links or Facebook ads, where are the buyers coming from? Kahan se rahe hain ye log? For you, at least for you.
Okay,
And
so
then-
I'll share. Before jewelry, I used to, I had now on a startup in Indian ethnic clothing also. So I had a couple of years experience in fashion domain as well in online space. And that time I had also chosen to, sell through my own website instead of selling through the marketplaces. So I do agree with the Trisha. I understand where she's coming from. But same time, I do agree with Rachana as well. You have to be on the channel, and we say to all our sellers that you have to be, the future of the business is not online. The future of business is not offline. And we had been saying to them, the future of business is O2O. You
Yes.
have to connect the online and offline, both the worlds, to get the best of the outputs in that. Okay, so coming back to your questions, I had seen in the clothing segment, in the fashion segment, the majority of the customer used to come from the social media that time. But that time, I think I'm talking about 4 years back, the Instagram was not that popular as it is today. So a lot of people used to come from Facebook and Twitter, and Google search were also giving very, very strong conversions. Today, what I see in jewelry space, our SEO is performing the best. The people who are coming with organic traffic, the people who are coming with the direct traffic, the conversion percentage is much higher than we are doing with the paid ads. But whatever the paid ads we do, that also results into the more of the direct traffic, and that also more converts into the organic traffic as well. Because the more the brand becomes popular, your direct and organic traffic starts coming higher. But even in the paid ads, what I have seen, the Google search and the Facebook and Instagram has given us a good conversion. But still, those conversion percentage is lower than the organic and the direct traffic coming to us. In our case, in jewelry space. And jewelry, people do not go to the website just for the window shopping. So in jewelry, any point of time, you might have go to, Shoppers Stop or a mall just to have a look around what new merchandise has come in. How many times you went to the Tanishq store or any jewelers store just to see what new merchandise has come in? So people do not enter inside the jewelry store until they have some kind of need or some kind of, that may not be instant need of in a week. That might be a need for in next 3 months. But they have some need of buying a jewelry, only then they come to the store. The similar happens with e-jewelry. Though they see our ads everywhere, but they come to the site, they look at it and they move on. But they come back to us again as an organic or direct traffic, then they have some kind of need to buy something. And again, let me tell you, I have seen, even the Google says, the people who searches a gadget, let's say an iPhone on Google first time, and he transacts online or offline anywhere, the average research time is almost 15 days. In jewelry, that research time is 45 days.
Okay.
So it is 3 times. So a 1 lakh rupees iPhone 11 Pro you can sell in 15 days through advertisement. And jewelry of 15,000 rupees you need to take 45 days. And you have to keep on engaging the customer for 45 days to finally transact with you. So this is what we have seen in our platform. And this is a continuous thing. And other thing, the people on our website comes to at least 5 to 7 times to finally transact. So it is not an impulsive sales for a, kind of a flash sale kind of thing. In 15 minutes, let's buy a 2 lakh rupees necklace in 1.5 lakh rupees. It doesn't work with us. So people have to have in jewelry space being a discretionary product. People have some budgets in the mind and they take a lot of time and decide. And many of the times it is not the individual person's decision. It can be the family decision to buy one product.
Interesting.
Because jewelry buying is not just a shopping for in India. It is a celebration moment for the whole family.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think people when go to a jewelry store, they go with an intention to buy, especially women. And I like the way Jitendra started. He said, "Okay, I agree with Trisha, and I also agree with Rachna because he knows he cannot disagree with women."
I,
Uh,
I have to tell you one more example.
Sure.
Let's say, Trisha and Rachna both. There are 7 airline companies in India. And how many marketplaces we have for those 7 airlines? And where these people sell their highest of the tickets? On their own websites or they sell on the marketplaces?
They're
So
able to
marketplaces
very
have
easily.
all
Yeah.
advantages. Marketplaces give you a lot of things which on website cannot. And it does not mean that they should not have on their own website. So their own website is equally important. But marketplaces have already shown in our country and across the globe that what kind of value they brings.
Interesting. Interesting. Great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Katie, can we have the next poll? Let's see what he comes up with. You can throw a bouncer. Okay. According to you, things will get normal in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months plus. I'm sure Anant will say 12 months plus. I'm very optimistic, so I'm gonna say 6 months. Things will get normal. But let's see what people think. All right. So, Katie, can you publish the results? Okay. 38% say 6 months. 38% say 9 months. 25% say 12 months. Wonderful. Interesting. 12 months plus, actually. Okay. Interesting. All right. So, let's go to Anant. Anant, you were talking about you are giving 90-day free trial. The email is free now, and Tisha's phone is ringing. And and what other services are you offering complimentary or as a gift to your people, to your customers? What's the plan? What's the roadmap? What all are you going to offer for free, so people can plan accordingly? What's all coming in for free?
So sadly, the 90-day free trial is no more. So we had to close that down in the beginning of June. So we have the Shopify email for free. We don't have an end date for that yet, but you never know when. So what we have is a back to business toolkit. So these are a list of offers that we have from various providers. So these are payment gateways, marketing providers, and other service providers who help you start the business. So if you go to shopify.com and just search for back to business, we have a toolkit specific for Indian merchants where we have put down all of these offers together. So again, these offers are again third-party offers, and all of this has an expiration date, and it depends on the provider that they're offering it as well. One thing that we do offer for free, or it's a free trial, is the 14-day free trial, which will always be free from Shopify's point of view. So I think for 14 days, you can start off and see how to set up an online store and probably explore Shopify by seeing how to integrate with other channels. These can be channels like Facebook, Instagram, again, Amazon, Vinculum. So we have an integration with all of the other providers and marketing providers as well. So you can have a taste of Shopify if you're going to be any form of merchant. So these can be merchants who are drop shippers, or let's say fashion providers or D2C brands, all of that. So you get this chance to explore a platform. And the best thing about Shopify is it does not depend on the size of the merchant, right? So we have merchants who are just starting off, who are drop shippers, who are also merchants who are big scalable. We have brands like ITC, Godrej, Raymond's, all of these on Shopify, Nokia's on Shopify as well. And the core platform of all of these brands are the same. So even if you start off at basic Shopify, which is the lowest plan on Shopify, the functionality that you offer might be low, but the core is the same. So that's the basic pillars, it's like products, orders, and all of these. That's going to remain the same, and the accessibility of apps or all third-party integrations is going to be the same. So that 14-day trial is going to remain free for all entrepreneurs, and because Shopify as such is an entrepreneur-focused company, and we want to help merchants start off.
Okay, interesting, wonderful. Trisha, and then I'll ask the same question to Jitendra. So what apps are you using at the moment on your site? What apps?
Like for
Technology.
features, do you mean?
Yeah, for features, for marketing, for otherwise, for analytics, for everything. What apps do you use?
So we use a bunch of different ones depending on the service. So we do use something called Notify Visitors for remarketing and push notifications, and trying to help get our customers back. We do use things like Recurpay for subscription. We do use ThirdWatch as a tool to actually help us with address verifications from an operations point of view. We do use Zoho Analytics as well.
Interesting. Do you also do data cleansing? Because there may be 5 people with like I say myself like Amit, then I say Amit K, then Amit Kaushal, but are we essentially one person? How do you manage this issue of the same person using different names, and perhaps I use this address sometimes for delivery and some other address later? Uh, what do you do about data cleansing? I think one of these things is very important to you.
Yes. So, I mean, we actually look at mobile numbers, the unique thing per customer, not names or email IDs. We actually go by mobile number. So, as I said, like one of the tools we do use is ThirdWatch, where
Okay.
it does actually help you understand that, okay, fine, has Amit ordered 1 order, 5 orders, 10 orders, in the recent times? Is Amit in the ecosystem of online e-commerce a good buyer or a fraudulent buyer, meaning that does he have high RTO rates in across the platform or not? And then based on our own previous data history, okay, is Amit actually out of 10 orders that he's maybe bought on Dr. Vaidya's in the past, have they come returned or have they not? So these things get flagged to us for sure. Yeah, so we do it based on mobile number.
Wonderful, wonderful, and mobile numbers also people are now using. Sometimes people have now 3 SIMs in the same phone, and some eSIM and some 2 phones and then 4 SIMs. Then what do you do about that then?
Nothing. I mean, you just have to, at the end of the day, you have to have there's always going to be some customers who are fraudulent, some who are fake, some who just place the order and then maybe they get a cheaper deal on another platform, or, there could be many reasons actually. I think as long as you know as a business what is the hit you can take, and you factor that cost in, because there is a forward and return charge as well. And you actually know that, okay, this is what I'm comfortable with, and you monitor these levels, it's fine. You can't prevent it. Like, you really cannot.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Risha. Jitendra, what's your take on this? What apps do you use? How do you cleanse your data? How do you remove duplicates, enrich your data? Because data is the key here. How do you do it?
So again, the mobile number is the unique identification number for every consumer we have.
It's like Aadhaar number.
It's like Aadhaar number.
If you use Aadhaar number, it will become actually unique.
Yes, but again, other thing is, as you rightly mentioned, the people have 2-3 mobile numbers, and when there is a deal going on the website, and if the deal is only one person per customer, he can buy just as many SIM cards he want in 30-40 rupees, and after placing an order, he can throw out those cards. So that is all possibilities are there. So another thing we also try to detect the device. So by the device, if we are able to say that one device has been used for 2 different mobile numbers, we are able to detect that. But again, we are open to to find out more information how we can definitely clean it. Another manual process we have: any customer who places an order, it always followed up by our customer service call, because end of the day we are dealing with the very expensive items and very gold and diamonds and kind of jewelry. So after every order comes in, our customer service always calls back to the customer and we try. So that is one manual process we have. I don't know how long we will be able to continue that manual process, or how much manpower we would require to, as the business keep on growing. But again, we believe in jewelry industry, the transaction is not going to be like 30,000 transaction happening in one day kind of thing. So we would be able to handle it, but we are open. We are looking for technologies who can definitely make it better.
Interesting. Now, so perhaps hiring. So Trisha, you were talking about that you have been coming to your workplace in last 4 months, and it was never a lockdown for you. You and the CEO and the top management were coming in, packing the stuff yourself. I mean, you were doing things perhaps which you were doing 10 years back in your career, 15 years back in your career, which
I'm
you
not that
perhaps.
old. I'm not that old.
Okay, I'm just exaggerating. Okay, okay, in the early career days, or you never did, and and you also, I think, faced issues in delivering. You didn't have the packing boys or delivery boys or delivery staff. So how did you manage this hiring and with so less staff and doing everything on your own? How was that for you?
Sure. So, so actually, when we started Dr. Vaidya's in the very beginning, this is exactly what we did, right? Arjun and I would do the packing. We've done the customer service. We still do customer service once a week to just understand that what is our customer saying, to get the pulse of who our customers and what the issues they are facing. So that stays true to even now. Was it challenging? Yes, we did. I can't say we did it alone. Of course, we had 3, 4 very brave people, I want to say, from my team who stood out. Their role was not this, but they, raised their hand and said, we will come to office and help you as well. And they did the packing with us, they did the cleaning with us, they did the stock movement with us. Initially, of course, we were all very paranoid. I actually got my brother-in-law also, to come and help us in office because, okay, you live in the same home, so certain safety measures are already being taken. So initially it was really difficult and you just had to do as much as you could. We would come home like completely completely exhausted, I want to say. Slowly, we started getting people from our team, from the ops team or other teams who lived nearby or who could come through their own transport like bike or car, etc., to start coming in. We also did hire some local help, again, people who come on their private vehicles, just as a safety measure, right? Every day in Bombay, numbers were increasing. So you also have to take some measures of safety to protect the people who are coming and risking their lives and their families' lives when they're going home. I personally live with an 82-year-old grandmother and my father-in-law who has 4 stents, right? So we have to take precautionary measures, but at the end of the day, could I sit at home and not give people the medicine they wanted? No, but that was a personal choice that Arjun and I both took, for example. So we did, hiring has been tricky. We've needed people for sure. We've had to keep certain, measures in place. You look at your Arogya Setu app, you check the temperature, you have sanitization processes in place. So, we're very strict here that if you are going down to deal with a courier and you're not wearing your mask or your gloves, you are fined straight away, right? Because at the end of the day, I have to protect everyone as much as I can who come to office. We sanitize more frequently. We've had to separate rooms for returns and dispatches because you have to keep precautions in place. So we've had to hire people from, a lot of people were let go. So the first place I actually looked at was close friends and family who were like my own brother runs a pizza place, for example. In restaurant business is going to take a hit. My family business is into luxury jewelry. They will also have to figure certain things out, right? Like they can't operate right now on 100% capacity. They're not legally allowed to. So how could I take on their trusted staff onto me, right? It works. It was a win-win situation. They didn't have to let go of someone and not take care of their families, because everyone does depend on a salary at the end of the day. And we could take on those people. So we've done things like that. We have hired a few people more, to be honest, on the concept of this is going to be an internship with the prospect of maybe looking at a future job. Because I feel like also if people have really switched, from being a manager at a restaurant to now dealing with customer service or operations, they may not want to do that long term. So I wanted to give the person also a chance to have an opt out. Also, once my own staff eventually come back, I also had to think of that. So it's not been easy. Sometimes I've been quite amazed and surprised if I interviewed someone who said that, yeah, I can join remotely, and they wanted a 76% hike. And I'm like, what world do you live in? Like, even if you were the best candidate, that statement there and there, just, you don't fit into the company's culture. You just don't. Like, here we've had a company where we've been lucky and we've tried to make sure that no salary cuts, etc., are done. The team is very generously like donated leaves, for example, right? But like, hiring is difficult. You have to do it. But we've had to hire some people remotely. And it's a risk, but some really, yeah, it's not been easy, but it's changed our whole hiring process also in a great way. So I'm just trying to look at the positives of it, because the news will keep giving you the negatives. You need to find certain positive things throughout the day to keep you sane, I feel, right now as well. So I mean, we've changed our whole hiring process.
So regarding hiring is something very important that we learned. I think I learned in about 3 months back is we have unfortunately have always been hiring based upon capability. How much experience this person has in supply chain, how much experience this person has in marketing or sales or whatever department, on capability. Six weeks back, I learned that we should never hire based upon capability. Hire based upon values. For example, Trisha, you mentioned that there were like 3-4 people who were willing to come out and help you out of the box, and because they had the values which you have. They have enthusiasm, they have courage. Those are their values. They have the value of going out of the comfort zone and doing it for the company and giving your heart and soul. Those are the values that these people had, which not everybody has. So if we hire based upon values, if you hire people based upon values and we give them capability, so these people have values, give them capability, whether it's sales, marketing, whatever values you want to, capability you want to give them those capabilities, and these people will capture those capabilities and will become your star employees. So we have been hiring people based upon capability since forever. In the last 6 weeks, we hired 4 people based upon values, and fortunately, all 4 of them are freshers, and they had huge, great values. They have energetic, enthusiastic, go-getter, never say die. They want to give the best experience to their customer. They will never give you an excuse. They have positive attitude. So these are the values we look for when we hire now. We have changed our mindset, and if you are hiring people based upon values, you will never have bad people around you. You will always have great people around you, and you always be happy because they're going to run great company for you, and you can just relax. So this is the last round, and to wrap up, I will give 3 to 4 minutes to each speaker now. Going to Rachana specifically now. Rachana, we have a bunch of attendees here, and this webinar is going to go live, go to all channels after this is finished, and people will be watching it from all over industry, from brands to marketers to everybody. What advice would you give them from your experience? What advice would you give them moving forward? What should they be doing? I mean, I'm sure you spoke about go the omni-channel way and everything else. Apart from that, if you give them 2 or 3 pointers which they can take away from the discussion and use in their business, they can use it. Something like take pointers or takers or action items for them.
Okay. So I think there was a poll question about when are things going to become normal. So first of all, I would say that I don't think normal is going to be the way we experienced world, pre-COVID. There is going to be, as my favorite phrase is, it's going to be a never normal situation. And honestly speaking, no matter how many articles you read, even the WHO keeps going ping pong about, whether it's airborne or whether it's not. So I don't think anybody really has a clear answer, and nobody knows how it's going to shape up. So to my mind, the first thing, and that's been the biggest learning for me and for us as an organization, and I resonate with lots of things that Trisha talked about and even you spoke about. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the ability to be agile is something which is extremely important in today's world, because there is nothing which is certain. And that is the clear mantra for all of us. What we planned 6 months down the line or 8 months down the line may be something that we need to build upon overnight, right? The second thing is, I think the most powerful resource that you essentially have is people. And the ability to take your people along in the most trying times actually makes you the leader. And even at Vinculum, we've practiced the same thing, same philosophy, which is no matter how difficult it is, we'll not make people lose jobs. But I think what's important is how is it that we can help people reskill themselves, okay? And reskilling is coming out as an extremely important, thought, with respect to people and people, not only at an individual level, but also at a professional level. Because I don't think I can turn around and say, I'm just a marketer, right? I need to be aware about how the world is evolving. Maybe I really need to learn coding, and it's not about tomorrow, but it needs to be today. So about reskilling, about being able to do different kind of things. And in our organization, we've actually looked at picking up people even from, say, an HR and moving them into people who had, some analytical skills, and they were sitting in HR. We moved them to CEO's office and stuff like that, where there was a lot more data crunching required in this kind of a time. But just essentially trying to make people far more resourceful and making them win even in this situation. So I think people, second is the people. I don't think I'm talking about anything new, but it's just extremely important, and we know it, but when it's times like these that you actually get to practice it, and gives you an opportunity to practice it. So that's the second thing. The third thing that I would say is digitization is like, we always heard 3 years back, when, especially as marketers, I'd basically go back to that piece, which is like 10 years back, people were talking about digital marketing and this and that. And we, as marketers who essentially built their career over traditional marketing, would say, okay, fine, it's supposed to come. Okay, I'll learn it over a period of time. It's digitization is in every aspect of things now, and you can't afford to not look at it. And when you are looking, you're learning one aspect of digitization, and suddenly 500 other new options have come up. So embracing digitization as a part of your normal routine and your normal life is something which is extremely critical. And if I am going to be the consumer, I would expect the same out of my out of the brand which is serving me as well. So that's something which you cannot ignore. And hence, let's not keep our blinkers on and say, okay, fine, I'll just move towards this part of it. There, in the past 3 months, the kind of digitization and the kind of use cases that has emerged, we had not even thought of it, right? We never thought of virtual trial rooms, let's face it. Or we did not think about, assistants who are virtual shopping through personal assistants, which are bots. So embracing digitization is going to be extremely critical, both at an individual level as well as at a brand level. So these are some of the clear pointers that are coming out to me.
Interesting, wonderful. Anant, what takeaways would you give to people? What can they just take from you and use it tomorrow or tonight?
So one thing that I really want to stress about is empathy. So we value this a lot, and I personally value this a lot as well. Understand the position that every single person is, be it a customer, be it a merchant, be it a service provider, be it a delivery boy, be it anybody. Empathize with the other person. Understand the feelings that they are going through. Imagine the situation at their places. Like, put yourself in their shoes and think about how you can be a better human being, and also build a brand or anything around it. Like, empathy is the first thing that you have to think about. Again, tying down that to Shopify, we try to empathize with our merchants, try to enable them at any point of time. So that is a strong value that I would want to give off to every single person here, and every other person who's going to watch this webinar. Empathize with the other person, be it your customer, even the small things, small aspects. When you're sending out a marketing email as well, send it out the correct point of time, send it to the right person, thinking about when this goes out to them, what is the state of mind that the person is going to. So that is something that I really want to talk about from everyone's perspective. And now might not be, let's say, people would think now is not the best time to start something, but now actually might be the best time to start anything, like in the digital world. And as Rachna rightly focused, we are shifting so fast to the digital thing, and we have so much of potential as an Indian, as the educations that we get as an Indian. We have so much of potential to dig deep into the internet and start something new. And we want to support all of these people and all of the entrepreneurs to like start something new. And if you want really any help, I think reach out to anyone in any price. And now everybody is planning to willing to help. So help people, empathize with the other person, and start experimenting.
Interesting. That's very deep, and I hope everybody is listening and understanding this. Thank you so much. That's so nice of you, Anant. Empathy and start something new right now. Jitendra, what can you give to your audience? What can they take from you?
So I think everybody working from home, perhaps working more than we used to work in the office. I think. So I think everybody's situation is everybody knows when to start in the morning, but it becomes difficult when to stop in the evening.
When to end.
When to end in the evening. I think everybody is going to. So when we all have more time, I think this is the time to relook your business fully in every aspect and relook your business how you had been doing conventionally, and which are the processes and which are the systems can we go to the unconventional method now, which are the methods which can be driven by the IT, which are the methods where any software change or technology upgradation can help you to grow. And then you put your targets, how you can grow in long run to 2x or 3x, let's say 2 or 3x, because these are the times when we have to relook our businesses and the process. And everybody team said, you have to go along with the team you have, you acquire the team, try to even in these times, try to keep them with you, try to absorb them with you, even if it is cost you a little bit more, but still try to absorb with them. So for just for each Ori, so we have not removed anyone in this period, and we are looking to continue with the whole team. And this is what everybody should think of. We should have to be empathic with other people, because they are the people who are actually driving the business. We are only the people who are guiding them. And
Absolutely.
this is my one solution or one suggestion to everybody: relook every part of your business and try to find what you were doing conventionally, which can go unconventional and can be IT driven.
Excellent. Excellent. Trisha, you are also a giver. What do you want to give to these audience today?
So I'm actually I couldn't agree with more about the empathy aspect, but I'm actually going to just give, some feedback that I have recently received, and it's just stuck in my brain. So I was listening to this podcast called Direct to a Billion Consumers, and it's all about the entrepreneur's journey, right? And all the hardships all of us go through, right? No one tells you about the all the headache you go through. Everyone only talks about the sexy stuff of a startup, right? Three things that really stood out to me, and one of them is that I personally tell anybody who asks me, is one is everything is figure outable, right? There is a solution. As Anand said, I completely agree. Every answer doesn't have to come from you. Go to an expert. Please reach out to experts. People are more than willing to actually help you. Even if it's from the same sector, same industry, it doesn't matter. You're not always competing. Learn from other people's mistakes. And everything is figure outable. You try 5 routes maybe, but it is. The second thing, which actually Arjun and I really adopted, I think, from the beginning of this lockdown, even more so, even though it is one of our principles of Dr. Vaidya's, is at the end of the day, the customer is going to make your product a hero or a zero, right? And this is something that I learned from the founder of Wow, actually. And what that means is, at the end of the day, Arjun and I, when we looked at lockdown, courier costs were high. It was impossible. You knew you were going to get higher returns, but we still decided, let's take that hit, screw all your P&L for some time, and just give what people need. Your customer needs the medicine. That's the only thing you care about, right? At that moment, at that phase of your life. So do that. And the third thing is grit, right? I think the one thing that entrepreneurs see, I think, daily, and COVID has made it, I just expand for all of us, is grit. Like, you have to have a thick skin. You have to be able to push through. If you actually truly believe in what you are doing, right? And it doesn't matter if you own the company or not. I genuinely believe this. Like, push it through. Listen, take those 10 no's and get excited when you get that one yes, right? You will get the no's, but get that one yes. So I think these are three things that I see it daily. You have bad days, you have good days. Focus on the good things as well. So at Dr. Vaidya's, we have this thing of setting small milestones. You have a larger goal, you have a larger vision for your brand and your company. But what are the smaller goals? Today, have I been able to dispatch 10,000 orders? That's my goal. What is my sale on Amazon reach today? What is it? These are small goals which we set, and we celebrate each one of them. Every single goal was celebrated. And we did one thing that, this comes to the point of empathy. And honestly, I'm going to be quite selfish and say, I feel good about it. Arjun and I actually took some time one day to actually just write notes and letters to people in our team who have done an exceptional job, right? Working from home. You have children, you have family members who become more demanding, who may not have as much work as you do. You have internet issues, electricity issues. But they're the reason why we've been able to grow, right? As what Jitendra said, it's not just we are guiding them, but it's their hard work. So we actually took out some time to just send them and their families a little thank you, a little cake and a little note, to each of them, and how and why they've helped us and why it's so amazing. And I can't tell you, I'm telling you selfishly also, how good that made me feel to do something positive in that day. And I guarantee you, like, it made their day and their family's day, right? Imagine, like, your family gets so proud of the fact that someone sends it. So I think all these small things of kindness also, they really do help, and we should all take the time out to do it, be it like the watchman in our office building who have to stay here, who aren't allowed to go home. What can you do for them? There is something, you know so I think all these are really important things, and it comes down to, I can't agree more, empathy is key right now.
Excellent, excellent. I am moved. The answer I got in the end actually gave me goosebumps. I don't want to cry, so we'll shut this down. But before we shut this down, excellent, guys. I mean, I'm so excited. We got such a powerful panel and such good learnings. Rachna talked about reskilling, being agile, and resource allocation. Anand spoke highly about empathy and reaching out to people and giving them that warmness, that the support that they need right now. Excellent. Jitendra spoke about self-introspection, innovating, and bringing things to IT and making things automatic and improving the projects which have always been pushed and delayed, and okay, we'll work on it tomorrow, should be done now, because now you have all the time. You don't have to go out for dinners, for parties, for drinking sessions, no more all of that. So you can use all of that for productive self-introspection. Trisha spoke about a wonderful word, figure outable. I love this word. You can figure out anything and everything, and you can. And your customer is the key, and the grit and the goals and the celebration of goals. Goal setting is so important, such a wonderful thing, and reaching out those goals and celebrating those goals is even more important. Guys, I cannot thank you enough. I'm so moved. I'm so happy to be here as your moderator. And I'm so glad that all of you are such givers. I mean, you are giving your knowledge, you're just distributing it. It feels so great being in the giver community. I mean, nobody likes to be taker. I mean, if you're taker, you will always be like this, will always be bent. But if you're giver, you can sit straight and you can sit with your head up. You guys are such givers, and I'm so thankful to all of you. Thank you so much, and I'm so excited. I'll see you again very soon in the next webinar. We're going to host this webinar on YouTube, on Facebook, on all channels. Go Omni channel, go wherever. And thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
God bless. Take yourself. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.